everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now we've got a little bit of a weird one this week as I take a trip beyond Hadrian's Wall and look to England's neighbours in the north as I have a look at Scotland. That's right, this week I'm donning my family's tartan and I'm tuning up my bagpipes as I take a look at who I think is top of the Scots. Now what on earth does top of the Scots mean? Fair point, it's a bit of a weird one. Basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a few fan favourite Scottish actors and putting them against each other in a bunch of categories to decide who I think is the biggest deal. Now to do that, I'll be ranking them 1 to 5, best to worst, in each of the categories. I won't show you all of my scores, but there is a spreadsheet somewhere that I've made before this that keeps track of everything. I'll give you a leaderboard throughout, and by the end, whoever has the lowest score will be crowned top of the Scots. Now this video is just a little bit of fun, and it's just my opinions. I'm sure you won't agree with me. I won't be overly critical of any of the people I've chosen, and in fact, I love all 5 of them. I just thought it'd be a bit fun to just sort of pit them against each other, have a little bit of a play with it, and just see who comes out on top. Like I say, all of these actors are great in their own right, and me putting them anywhere other than first doesn't mean I'm hating on them. On that note, the 5 actors I've decided to pit against each other are Ewan McGregor, Karen Gillan, James McAvoy, Tilda Swinton, and David Tennant. Now I chose these 5 because they have comparable resumes. They have a similar length list of credits, with only really Karen lagging behind the others, but her career is building fast and she's a lot newer to it than the rest of them. Not only that, but they also share quite a lot of franchises with each other. James McAvoy and Tilda Swinton obviously are both in Narnia, and then Tilda is in the MCU alongside Karen, who is of course in Doctor Who, as is David Tennant. And while I couldn't find a direct crossover with any of them in Ewan, feel free to point out if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. He's only about 1 degree away in separation from any of them. So with all that being said, let's cut all of the preamble and jump right in. Now the first category I'm going with is Acting Chameleon. And I think for this one, there is one clear winner, and that is Tilda Swinton. Whether she's playing the White Witch in Narnia or the Ancient One in the MCU, to numerous sets of twins in various films that she's been in, or even playing a man in Suspiria, I think Tilda has this amazing range and she's able to melt perfectly into any role that you ask of her. She's shown this numerous times and it's a real sort of gold star on her resume, something that she is very well known for and something that she can do extremely well. I think second place in this category was probably David Tennant, especially recently in the ITV series Des. He's really shown that he can morph into someone completely different. However, a lot of his other roles are a bit David Tennant-y. However, although a lot of these come back to sort of how he plays the Doctor in Doctor Who, you've got to bear in mind that even his portrayal of the Doctor is nothing like his regular voice and his regular accent. Of course, he has a thick Scottish accent, and that's not how he appears in Doctor Who. Also, the other 3 of course have great range, they're all fantastic actors. However, I think especially in the case of James and Ewan, they often play a kind of James McAvoy or Ewan McGregor type in films, and that's why you cast them. They're great at those roles, I just don't think they have quite as much range as David and Tilda. Also, Karen's career hasn't really had the same level of credits yet. I'm sure in time she'll show her range to the same extent as the others. However, she just hasn't had opportunity to spread her wings as much as them. Now round 2 is Acting Funny, which of course measures their comedic chops. Now while I think all of these have it in their locker to play comedy, I also think it's none of their main strengths. They will do it very well in some of the things they've been in, whether that's Karen Gillan in Doctor Who playing alongside Matt Smith and Arthur Darvill, or whether that may be Ewan McGregor in The Men Who Stare at Goats. However, what these roles especially have in common is that quite often they're not the funny, wacky one. They're usually the straight man alongside the funnier and wackier person, whether that be Ewan McGregor playing against George Clooney in Men Who Stare at Goats, or you've got Karen Gillan who's got Matt Smith to compete with there. Now, Tilda Swinton has had quite a few comedic roles, whether that be in Hail Caesar, or even the levity and comedy that she brings to roles such as The Ancient One. Both show that her ability in comedy is not lacking. However, in the end, I think this came down to either James McAvoy or David Tennant. Now, David Tennant is fantastic. He's been in a lot of comedy specials, particularly for comic relief in Children in Need, where he's definitely been able to show his comedic chops. Not only that, but his constant pairings up with Catherine Tate, whether that be in Doctor Who itself or on the Catherine Tate show, he's proved time and time again that he definitely has a funny bone in him. However, I'm going to give this to James McAvoy in the end. I think he's been in a few more pure comedy releases, such as Filth, for example, which is a great example of his comedic chops. Not only that, but he tends to play the comedic guy in the action films that he's in as well. And I think that generally speaking, if I was going for a more light-hearted comedic role, I'd probably cast James McAvoy, and that's why he wins it here. Now onto a category that I have called Ass Kicker. And I think that this is a pretty obvious choice because I've gone with Ruby Roundhouse herself, Karen Gillan. And not only because of this role in Jumanji, which of course she's amazing in, but also her role as Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers, and even as Amy Pond in Doctor Who, particularly in the episode The Girl Who Waited. I think she really shows a lot of sort of action chops, particularly in her sort of stage fighting and that kind of stuff, which I know that she does a lot of herself. Obviously she does have stunt doubles as well, but I do hear that she does a lot of her own stuff. Karen Gillan has been able to sort of carve out this kind of role as a bit of an action hero, a sort of bona fide star of this genre. She's able to go toe-to-toe quite often with juggernauts like The Rock and Zoe Saldana, and she does so with ease, and I think she's made herself a name here where she does a really good job. I think she's the obvious choice for Ass Kicker, and why would I give it to any of the others? Now onto a similar category to the last one with a slight nuance difference. And instead of doing Ass Kicker, I'm going on to a sort of more action and adventure hero. Now, the difference between this is I think Ass Kicker is a straight up badass, someone who can play the sort of domineering fighter, whereas action hero is someone who I guess kind of you'd root for a little bit more. You're sort of Lara Croft or that kind of thing, or a Nathan Drake kind of character. Someone who can really get behind, who you follow their story. And while I think Karen Gillan could do this well, I think quite often she plays a better supporting character, someone who comes in as a bit of a surprise package and comes in and sort of kicks everyone's ass. However, this is why I've gone for Ewan McGregor for this category. Now, of course, he played a fantastic Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequel trilogy, which is a role that he's also bringing back in the upcoming Kenobi series that's going to be coming on Disney Plus, whenever that may be. Not only that, but he's even starred in a Michael Bay film, The Island, alongside Scarlett Johansson, which is one of my favourite films of all time, even though when I watch it back occasionally, I do look at it and go, not 100% sure why this is my favourite. I mean, it's a great concept, it's got some good parts to it, but it is very much a Michael Bay movie. Anyway, I'm getting a bit sidetracked. The reason why I chose Ewan McGregor for this is obviously because of these credits, and also I just think generally he's someone you can often root for in this kind of thing. He's someone you want to see win. And also he kind of plays a bit of an everyman, something that as well James McAvoy does quite well. However, I just think Ewan McGregor brings a bit more gravitas. He's got a little bit more about him that makes him more of a sort of action and adventure kind of star. Now it's time for dramatic chops, and the person I'm choosing is David Tennant. Now, I alluded to his role in Des earlier, but not only that, of course he has fantastic moments in Doctor Who. So many episodes where he puts in stellar performances. And that doesn't even begin to cover the rest of his work. Of course, he has an amazing guest spot in Criminal UK on Netflix, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. He puts in great performances all the time on Good Omens. And of course, his tour de force performance in Broadchurch, which is just remarkable and captivating from start to finish. David is a really fantastic actor, and it doesn't even stop on the screen as well. He is a thespian of the stage, and he has critically acclaimed roles in many a production, whether that be in Hamlet, Richard III, and many others as well. However, I do also think Tilda can push him toe-to-toe sometimes. She has great roles in things like we need to talk about Kevin or Snowpiercer or even Okja, where she puts in stellar performances, and some of the other ones that I've mentioned earlier as well, where she plays really good roles. And also, I don't want to discredit any of them. All of them are fantastic actors. Ewan McGregor as well, who puts in amazing performances across the board, whether that be in stuff like Doctor Sleep, or whether that be in the Star Wars prequels that I mentioned before. Of course, Karen Gillan plays fantastically in the MCU, and of course in Doctor Who as well herself. And James McAvoy has a number of fantastic performances, whether that be as Charles Xavier in X-Men, or even if he's appearing in an M. Night Shyamalan movie, Split. He's just a remarkable actor as well. All of them are really good, but for me, David's the best of all of them. Now next up is who I think can bring it to a family audience. And this was quite a difficult one because all of them have examples of doing so. Whether that be Karen in Spies in Disguise, Tilda as the White Witch in Narnia, David as Scrooge McDuck in DuckTales, or Ewan as Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast. All of them show fantastic examples of this, however, I think my answer is the star of Romeo and Juliet and Sherlock Gnomes, and I'm sure a bunch of other films that don't involve gnomes like X-Men or Narnia itself, or even as Arthur in Arthur Christmas. My answer is Mr. Tumnus himself, James McAvoy. His friendly face and lovable charm make him a perfect fit for kids' movies. And not only that, but his talent and his enthusiasm really sort of endear him to an adult audience as well, making him a perfect blend for sort of family films. Also, he's quite often bait for a lot of X-Men fan art, which is far too not safe for work to show here. But overall, he's just a crowd pleaser. He's loved by so many people in everything he does, and because of that, he's the best family actor of all of these. Last up is leading star, and this category kind of combines a few elements from some of the other ones. Whether this be because they can hold up in terms of sort of action and adventure chops, whether they can put in a stellar, dramatic performance, or just be sort of charming, lovable, and a bit light-hearted. Whether it's any of those different things, I think that this person is someone who you just want to figurehead any sort of role that you might want, whether that be a franchise or just a big budget standalone film, or even a long-running series. And because of all of that, my choice is David Tennant. Now, mostly this is because of his role as the Doctor, which of course he's fantastic in. For a long time he really carried that franchise, and even so much as to say that the BBC didn't know if they were going to continue it after he decided to leave. Of course they did, and I'm glad they did, because Matt Smith was fantastic, and Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker obviously have their amazing episodes as well. But David is this huge tour de force who never falls flat. He's fantastic in everything that he's in. He brings so much charisma, so much likability, and he just has this charm that really sort of entices you into whatever he might be in. Whenever I see David Tennant's name on the cast list of something, I get a bit excited because I know it's going to be good. And I think that is what makes someone who is the real sort of leading star. Because of that, David Tennant wins out here. Quick side note though, all the other actors are fantastic at this as well. Ewan McGregor in particular is a really great figurehead. Obviously his work as Kenobi, as I've mentioned a number of times, is fantastic. James McAvoy again can do this really well, especially when he's Charles Xavier. Karen Gillan and Tilda Swinton also bring this quite often in some of the stuff they're in. However, a bit less so than the others. Quite often they're not playing the figurehead. I think they could do it really well, they just haven't been given the opportunity. However, once again, David just wins it. Now that's all the categories done, and before I reveal who the final winner is, just another quick disclaimer that everyone's position in this list says nothing about how good they are as an actor. Each of them is fantastic, and it's just the categories that I've chosen that have made them have their places that they have here. Each of them are great in their own right, as shown by the fact that each of them wins at least one category each. So once again, all great actors. I'm not saying any are better than another. Also, with all this talk about Scottish actors, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fantastic career of the late Sean Connery. Sean Connery was a real titan of the film industry, and pretty much every role he took on was iconic. Whether that be as the father of Indiana Jones or, of course, James Bond himself. He's a truly remarkable actor who'll be thoroughly missed. Our thoughts and best wishes are with his loved ones at this moment. Now, without any more stalling, the actor with the lowest overall score, and of course the winner of Top of the Scots, is David Tennant. But it sure was close. Coming up in joint second place was Karen Gillan and James McAvoy, followed by Tilda Swinton, and in a slight surprise to me because he was actually my favourite to be number one at the beginning, it's Ewan McGregor in 5th place. And I do say 5th place on purpose because I don't consider it to be last place. All of these actors are fantastic, I love each of them in the many roles that they've been in, and I just wanted to celebrate all of their careers. So there we go. What do you think of all my decisions, and of course of my overall winner? Now, I really think that any of them could have topped my list, so I'd really like to know who tops yours. Let me know down in the comments below, and also again, don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, we really appreciate the support, and I will see you next week.